Desire has always been humanity's oldest companion. We desire love, recognition, prosperity, freedom, and a life that feels meaningful. Yet history repeats the same story. One desire is fulfilled, only for another to take its place. The horizon keeps moving. The thirst never seems to end, yet few have paused to ask the deeper question. What is desire trying to teach us? The Hermetic sages taught that every longing points toward a forgotten truth. Behind the pursuit of wealth lies the desire for security. Behind the pursuit of power lies the desire for significance. Behind the pursuit of recognition lies the desire to be seen. And behind every temporary desire rests the soul's deeper longing to remember its true nature. This is where manifestation truly begins, not by accumulating more, but by understanding the consciousness that seeks. Throughout this book, we will explore those timeless principles, not as promises of instant miracles, but as enduring lessons in self-knowledge, disciplined action, and conscious living. Because the greatest manifestation is not merely creating a different life, it is becoming a different person. If these pages awaken curiosity rather than certainty, they have already served their purpose. The greatest teachers never demanded blind belief. They invited careful observation, honest reflection, and disciplined practice. Chapter 1: The Divine Mind. Where all creation begins, before an act of courage changes history, it begins as an invisible decision inside an ordinary human heart. And before the harvest fills the field, an unseen seed disappears into darkness. The ancient sages believed this pattern was not merely poetic. It was one of the deepest laws governing existence itself. They taught that all visible creation emerges from an invisible source, just as every river begins from springs hidden beneath the mountains. The Hermetic teachers understood that human beings are neither powerless spectators nor absolute rulers of reality. We are participants. We cooperate with life through the quality of our awareness, our choices, and our actions. The divine mind continually offers possibilities, but each person must decide which possibilities to cultivate. Imagine a gardener standing before fertile ground. The earth does not choose the seed. It simply nourishes whatever is planted. If weeds are neglected, they spread. If fruit trees are carefully tended, they flourish. Consciousness often behaves in a similar way. Whatever thoughts, attitudes, and intentions receive sustained attention gradually strengthen themselves. For this reason, the ancients placed extraordinary importance on self-knowledge. To know oneself was not an exercise in vanity. It was an act of responsibility. The person who never examines their fears becomes governed by them. The one who never questions old assumptions mistakes inherited beliefs for eternal truth. But the one who patiently observes the movements of the mind begins reclaiming the freedom to choose rather than merely react. Creation always begins in the unseen, not because thoughts magically command reality, but because every meaningful action is born from an invisible decision. Every civilization, every family, every invention, every reconciliation, every act of courage has followed this quiet order. The invisible comes first. Perhaps this is why the greatest work any person can undertake is not the accumulation of possessions, but the cultivation of consciousness. Wealth may disappear. Circumstances may change. Health may rise and fall. Yet a disciplined, compassionate, and wise mind continues generating possibilities even in difficult seasons. The ancient teachers understood something many people still overlook. Your greatest creative instrument has always been the quality of your own awareness. As you continue this journey, ask yourself a simple question. If every lasting creation begins within, what invisible patterns are you building today that tomorrow's life will eventually reveal? Chapter 2. Manifesting Prosperity Wisely. Among the oldest questions humanity has ever asked is not, "How do I become wealthy?" but rather, what kind of person naturally attracts trust, opportunity, and abundance? Ancient civilizations rarely separated prosperity from character. They believed that wealth gained without wisdom quickly became a burden, while prosperity rooted in integrity could nourish families, communities, and generations. Whether one reads the sayings attributed to Egyptian scribes, the reflections of Stoic philosophers, or the symbolic language of Hermetic writings, a common thread appears again and again. Outer prosperity is strengthened by inner order. There is an old account from the marketplaces of Alexandria about an elderly merchant whose stall remained busy even when neighboring traders struggled. His goods were not always the cheapest, nor were they the rarest. Yet travelers crossed crowded streets simply to buy from him. When a young apprentice finally asked why, the merchant smiled and pointed not toward his merchandise, but toward the faces of his returning customers. "They do not return because I possess treasure," he said. "They return because they trust the hands that hold it." That simple observation carried more wisdom than countless strategies for accumulating wealth. Trust became his invisible currency long before coins exchanged hands. Ancient traditions often treated prosperity less as possession than as participation. A person contributed useful labor, solved genuine problems, honored agreements, and cared for resources wisely. In return, the community rewarded that service. Wealth was therefore understood not merely as accumulation but as evidence that value had circulated successfully between people. This perspective changes the question entirely. Instead of asking, "How can I get more?" the wiser question becomes, "How can I become more useful?" History repeatedly suggests that individuals remembered not merely for riches, but for their contributions left the deepest mark. Builders who designed aqueducts, physicians who eased suffering, teachers who cultivated wisdom, and craftsmen who mastered their trades all enriched society before society enriched them. The Stoics admired this attitude because it placed attention on what remained within one's influence. One cannot command the market, predict every season, or guarantee success. One can, however, improve one's character, refine one's craft, keep one's promises, and respond honorably to changing circumstances. These are quiet investments whose returns often compound over many years. Modern life frequently encourages the opposite habit. We compare incomes, titles, possessions, and lifestyles, while overlooking the qualities that produced lasting respect in the first place. Comparison consumes attention that could have been invested in learning, serving, or creating. The ancient teachers warned that prosperity detached from responsibility becomes fragile. Wealth without discipline often disappears as quickly as it arrived. Prosperity guided by stewardship, however, becomes capable of sustaining families, supporting communities, and leaving a legacy beyond one lifetime. Stewardship means treating every resource, whether time, skill, knowledge, influence, or money, as something temporarily entrusted to our care rather than permanently owned. This attitude naturally encourages patience over impulse and generosity over fear. A familiar modern example illustrates this principle. Consider two people who receive the same opportunity. One spends every reward immediately in pursuit of appearances. The other quietly develops new skills, strengthens relationships, and reinvests in future work. Years later, the difference rarely lies in luck alone. It reflects thousands of ordinary decisions shaped by long-term thinking. Ancient wisdom consistently returned to this truth. Prosperity follows usefulness more reliably than pursuit. Chasing wealth alone often produces anxiety. Concentrating on becoming genuinely valuable frequently creates opportunities that cannot be forced. Like a healthy tree, enduring prosperity usually grows slowly. Deep roots remain invisible for many seasons before branches bear fruit. Perhaps the most practical question is not, how much do I possess? But, whose life becomes better because I am here? That question quietly redirects attention from endless acquisition toward meaningful contribution, and history suggests that societies have always found ways to reward those who consistently create value for others. Chapter 3. The Wisdom of Sacred Questions. Why did so many of history's greatest teachers answer sincere questions with another question? Rather than filling the mind with conclusions, wise teachers invited people to examine the foundations of their own thinking. A borrowed answer might comfort someone for a day. A personally discovered insight could transform an entire life. Questions possess unusual power because they redirect attention. When someone asks, "Why does this always happen to me?" the mind naturally searches for evidence supporting helplessness. But when the question changes to, "What can this experience teach me?" entirely different possibilities emerge. Circumstances may remain unchanged, yet perception, and therefore action, often changes with them. Ancient philosophers understood that the quality of one's questions often determines the quality of one's life. Socrates considered self-examination indispensable. His conversations rarely sought victory in debate. Their purpose was awakening. Many who met him left with fewer certainties than they had before, yet greater clarity about themselves. This process can feel uncomfortable because thoughtful questions disturb familiar habits. They expose contradictions between our stated values and our daily choices. They reveal fears hiding beneath confidence and assumptions disguised as facts. Imagine a retired artisan reflecting upon decades of work. One question asks, "How much did I earn?" Another asks, "Whom did my work help?" A third asks, "Who did my years of labor allow me to become?" Each question measures success differently. None changes the past, yet each reshapes the meaning of the past. The contemplative traditions of many civilizations therefore treated silence as an essential companion to questioning. Noise fills every empty space with opinions. Silence allows deeper questions to emerge naturally. Modern life often rewards immediate answers. Search engines, headlines, and constant notifications encourage speed. Ancient wisdom encouraged depth instead. The most important questions rarely produce instant certainty. They mature slowly, like seeds beneath the soil. Curiosity also protects against intellectual pride. Those convinced they already possess every answer stop observing. Those willing to continue asking remain open to growth throughout every season of life. Good questions also improve relationships. Instead of assuming another person's motives, we ask with genuine interest. Instead of defending our position immediately, we seek understanding first. Such conversations create trust because people feel heard before they feel judged. Many moments of personal transformation begin not with a dramatic revelation, but with one honest question asked at precisely the right time. What fear is guiding this decision? What value do I refuse to compromise? What kind of person am I becoming through today's habits? These questions do not merely gather information, they cultivate awareness. The greatest teachers understood that wisdom cannot simply be transferred from one mind to another. It must be awakened. A question becomes the key that unlocks a door already waiting within. Perhaps this is why ancient philosophers treasured inquiry more than certainty. An answer may conclude a conversation, but a living question continues shaping a person long after the words have ended. The next time life presents uncertainty, resist the urge to seek only quick solutions. Instead, pause long enough to ask a wiser question. Sometimes the transformation begins not when we finally find the perfect answer, but when we learn to ask what truly matters. Chapter 4. The 50 Illusions about Manifestation. For as long as human beings have dreamed of changing their lives, they have searched for hidden formulas. Every civilization tells stories of secret scrolls, mysterious initiates, and forgotten temples where the laws of transformation were supposedly guarded from the ordinary world. Yet nearly every authentic tradition points toward the same surprising conclusion. The greatest secret was never a shortcut. It was the transformation of the person seeking the shortcut. The oldest teachers rarely promised effortless rewards. Instead, they warned that the greatest obstacle was illusion itself. Perhaps the first illusion is believing that change should happen instantly. Modern culture worships speed. A message crosses oceans in seconds, and knowledge arrives with the touch of a screen. Gradually, the mind begins expecting every worthwhile thing to appear with equal speed. Yet nature tells another story. The oak spends decades becoming what the acorn already contains in potential. Rivers shape mountains through persistence rather than force. Ancient wisdom repeatedly invited people to imitate nature rather than demand that nature imitate impatience. There is an old story told among desert monks of a young seeker who begged an elder to reveal the quickest path to wisdom. The elder handed him a tiny olive seed. "Return when this becomes a tree." The young man protested. "That will take years." The elder smiled gently. "So will you." The lesson was not about agriculture. It was about the slow formation of character. Another illusion whispers that positive thoughts alone can replace disciplined action. Optimism has value. Hope gives weary people strength to continue. Yet hope without effort resembles a sailor who raises beautiful flags but refuses to touch the oars. Ancient craftsmen prayed before carving stone, but they still lifted the hammer. Farmers blessed their fields, but they still planted their seeds. The prayer prepared the heart. The work prepared the harvest. This pattern appears throughout history because it reflects something profoundly human. Belief influences perseverance, attention, and resilience, but belief does not eliminate the need for learning, responsibility, or consistent effort. The inner and outer must cooperate. Another subtle illusion convinces people that the purpose of spiritual knowledge is to control other people. This temptation is ancient. Kings sought oracles to conquer neighboring kingdoms. Merchants searched for lucky symbols to defeat competitors. Individuals imagined hidden techniques that could bend others to their desires. Yet the wisest teachers consistently redirected attention inward. They taught that the only lasting mastery begins with mastery of oneself. A person unable to govern anger, fear, pride, or envy possesses little real authority. No matter how much influence they appear to hold, the first kingdom is within. Another illusion is the pursuit of signs instead of wisdom. Some travelers spend their lives waiting for extraordinary symbols while overlooking ordinary opportunities. They chase mysterious coincidences, but ignore simple responsibilities. They collect inspirational sayings, yet postpone difficult conversations, neglected duties, and daily acts of kindness. Ancient philosophers often warned that fascination with mystery can become another form of distraction. Wisdom asks a quieter question: what faithful action is available today? That question changes, lives more reliably than endless speculation. There is also the illusion that adversity means failure. Alchemy, one of history's richest metaphors, tells precisely the opposite story. Lead becoming gold was never merely about metals. It symbolized the refinement of human nature. Fear becomes courage, confusion becomes understanding, selfishness becomes service. Transformation rarely begins in comfort. The furnace appears before the gold. This symbolic language reminds us that life's hardships often become the very conditions through which character matures. The obstacle itself becomes part of the education. Another illusion persuades people that responsibility limits freedom. Ancient teachers argued the reverse. Responsibility expands freedom because every disciplined habit increases future possibilities. Every honest decision strengthens trust. Every promise kept becomes invisible wealth carried into tomorrow. Freedom without responsibility eventually becomes chaos. Responsibility without freedom becomes slavery. Wisdom seeks harmony between the two. Perhaps the deepest illusion of all is believing that external circumstances alone determine the quality of life. History repeatedly challenges this assumption. Some individuals possessed little yet radiated remarkable peace. Others ruled vast empires while remaining restless and suspicious. External success can improve comfort. Inner order determines whether comfort becomes contentment. That distinction has echoed through centuries because every generation must rediscover it for itself. The ancient masters, therefore, warned against shortcuts, not because they wished to hide truth, but because shortcuts often bypass the very transformation that gives wisdom its lasting value. They understood that lasting change grows through patience, humility, disciplined attention, meaningful action, and service to something greater than personal ambition. The journey is slower than fantasy promises, but deeper than fantasy imagines. And perhaps that has always been the real miracle. Chapter 5. The Hidden Principles That Shape Every Human Life. Ancient Hermetic writings describe 7 principles that generations of readers have treated as symbolic guides for understanding themselves and the patterns they perceive in life. Whether viewed as philosophy, spiritual metaphor, or practical reflection, their enduring value lies not in memorizing them, but in allowing them to shape daily conduct. The first principle is mentalism, often summarized by the phrase that reality is first encountered through consciousness. In practical life, this reminds us that perception influences experience. Two people may face the same challenge, yet one sees only defeat, while another sees an opportunity to learn. Their circumstances may be identical, but their responses create different futures. Every meaningful change begins by examining the stories we continually tell ourselves. The second principle, correspondence, is remembered through the saying, "As above, so below, as within, so without." Rather than predicting mystical events, It invites reflection on how inner habits often express themselves outwardly. A mind filled with resentment may strain relationships. A mind trained in patience often creates calmer interactions. The outer world is shaped by many forces, yet our inner condition profoundly affects how we participate in it. The third principle is vibration, traditionally expressing the idea that everything exists in movement and change. Psychologically, it reminds us that emotional states influence judgment. Gratitude broadens awareness. Panic narrows it. Calm encourages wiser decisions than desperation. Before changing circumstances, it is often helpful to stabilize the mind that must respond to them. Next comes polarity, the recognition that apparent opposites frequently belong to the same spectrum. Fear and courage are not separate worlds, but different responses to uncertainty. Failure and success often become chapters within the same story. Understanding this softens rigid thinking and opens the possibility of transformation. The fifth principle is rhythm. Nature moves through seasons, tides, breathing, waking, and rest. Human life follows similar cycles. Prosperity and difficulty alternate. Energy rises and falls. Rather than resisting every change, wisdom learns when to persevere, when to recover, and when to begin again. Patience becomes a form of strength. The sixth principle, cause and effect, encourages responsibility. Every habit plants a seed. Every repeated choice shapes character. While life includes chance and circumstances beyond our control, many outcomes are influenced by consistent actions accumulated over time. Small daily decisions often become tomorrow's opportunities, or tomorrow's regrets. Finally comes gender, understood in Hermetic philosophy as the interplay of complementary creative qualities rather than merely biological distinctions. Symbolically, it points to the balance between reflection and action, intuition and analysis, receiving and creating. A flourishing life rarely depends on one quality alone. It emerges from harmony between them. These 7 principles become most meaningful when translated into ordinary living. In relationships, they encourage empathy, patience, and honest communication. In health, they remind us that daily habits matter more than occasional bursts of motivation. In purpose, they call us to align intention with consistent action. In prosperity, they suggest that lasting success grows from value, integrity, and service rather than shortcuts. Ancient tradition tells of an aging teacher who carried no treasures except a weathered notebook. A traveler laughed and asked where his secret knowledge was hidden. The old man opened the notebook. Inside were not magical formulas but simple reminders. Observe before reacting. Speak truthfully. Practice gratitude. Serve well. Begin again tomorrow. The traveler frowned. Is that all? The teacher smiled. If you live these completely, you will discover more wisdom than most people find searching for hidden libraries. The traveler left disappointed, believing the old man possessed nothing extraordinary. Years later, after success, failure, wealth, loss, celebration, and grief had each visited his life, he remembered those simple pages. Only then did he understand that the greatest teachings often appear ordinary because they ask not merely to be admired, but to be lived. That has always been the quiet challenge of ancient wisdom. Principles become powerful only when they descend from the page into the character of the person who practices them. Chapter 6. The Creator's greatest manifestation. The highest manifestation is becoming the person capable of sustaining what you seek. There is an old story told among master builders of the ancient world A wealthy merchant approached an elderly architect and said, "Design me the greatest palace this city has ever seen." The architect smiled gently and asked only one question: "Who will live inside it?" The merchant proudly listed his titles, possessions, and influence. The architect listened patiently before replying, "You have described your wealth, but not yourself." The palace was never built, for the architect understood a forgotten law. No outer structure remains beautiful for long if the one inhabiting it has never learned to govern the inner kingdom. This may be the greatest misunderstanding surrounding manifestation. Many seek to create successful lives while neglecting the character required to sustain them. Ancient wisdom reversed the order: become first, West second. The Hermetic writings consistently point towards self-transformation before external mastery. The alchemists were not fascinated merely by changing lead into gold. Their laboratories symbolized something deeper: the gradual refinement of consciousness itself, fear becoming courage, confusion becoming wisdom, selfishness becoming service, restlessness becoming peace. That was the true gold. Imagine placing a priceless musical instrument into the hands of someone unwilling to practice. The instrument possesses extraordinary potential, yet little beauty emerges because the musician has not developed alongside the gift. Life often operates similarly. People ask for greater opportunities while resisting greater responsibility. They desire influence without integrity, prosperity without stewardship, recognition without discipline. The ancient teachers quietly insisted that reality protects certain gifts until character becomes capable of carrying them wisely. This is not punishment. It is preparation. History repeatedly confirms this pattern. Marcus Aurelius inherited unimaginable authority as Emperor of Rome, yet his private writings reveal a man more concerned with mastering himself than ruling an empire. He reminded himself daily to remain humble, patient, and just because he understood that power magnifies whatever already exists within. Power does not create character, it reveals it. The same principle appears in every area of life. A peaceful marriage is sustained less by romance than by patience. A respected career is sustained less by talent than by reliability. Financial abundance is sustained less by income than by wisdom. Leadership is sustained less by charisma than by integrity. Character quietly supports everything visible. Without it, success becomes surprisingly fragile. Modern culture often encourages people to ask, "How can I get more?" Ancient philosophy preferred another question: "Who must I become?" That single shift transforms the entire journey. Consider the life of a gardener. The inexperienced gardener spends every morning pulling on the leaves, hoping to force faster growth. The experienced gardener nourishes the roots. He knows fruit arrives naturally when invisible foundations remain healthy. Likewise, peace grows from disciplined attention. Purpose grows from faithful action. Wisdom grows from honest reflection. Compassion grows from remembering one's own struggles. None of these qualities can be purchased. Each must be cultivated. This cultivation becomes the Creator's greatest manifestation, not because it changes the laws of nature, but because it aligns human life with them. One of the oldest teachings found across civilizations is that genuine greatness expresses itself through service rather than domination. Confucius emphasized virtuous leadership. The Stoics praised justice and self-command. Hermetic traditions encouraged harmony with the greater order. Though their languages differed, their direction remained remarkably consistent. Transform yourself, then bless the world. Notice how different this feels from chasing achievement for applause. A person who serves only recognition becomes anxious whenever praise disappears. A person rooted in purpose continues quietly even when unseen. One depends upon applause. The other depends upon conviction. This difference creates extraordinary freedom. The older we become, the more clearly we recognize that outward accomplishments eventually fade. Businesses change ownership. Careers end. Awards gather dust. Even monuments weather under time. Yet kindness remains alive in memory. Wisdom continues through those we mentor. Integrity echoes through generations. Character survives where trophies cannot. Perhaps this explains why many of history's most influential people owned relatively little while leaving immeasurable influence. Their greatest creation was not an empire, it was themselves. The practical path is beautifully ordinary. Begin each morning by asking, what qualities will I practice today? Patience, honesty, courage, generosity, presence. Each evening ask another question. Did my character grow stronger today than yesterday? These questions slowly redirect attention from possessing more toward becoming more. Ironically, this often improves external life as well, because wiser people generally make wiser decisions, healthy relationships deepen, trust increases, opportunities expand, not through magic, through maturity. The ancient sculptors understood this secret. Each strike of the chisel removed everything unnecessary until the hidden figure finally appeared. Human life follows the same pattern. Awakening is less about adding extraordinary powers than removing fear, pride, distraction, resentment, and illusion until the deeper self quietly emerges. The masterpiece was always there. The work was uncovering it. When that happens, manifestation takes on an entirely different meaning. No longer is it merely the pursuit of possession, it becomes the expression of consciousness. Peace manifests through patience. Wisdom manifests through discernment. Purpose manifests through service. Love manifests through daily choices. This is the Creator's greatest manifestation, not the life you accumulate, the person you become while living it. And perhaps, in the end, that was the treasure the ancient masters were trying to preserve all along. Chapter 7. Manifestation Myths versus Ancient Reality. Modern culture often speaks about manifestation as though it were a secret shortcut, a hidden technique capable of delivering success without sacrifice. It promises that if you simply repeat enough affirmations, imagine the desired future vividly enough, or maintain constant optimism, reality must eventually obey your wishes. The Hermetic philosophers often compared life to the act of planting seeds and harvesting. A farmer may believe deeply in a coming harvest, but faith never replaces planting, watering, protecting, and patiently waiting. Hope and effort were never enemies, they were companions. Positive thinking has value because hopeful people often notice opportunities that fearful minds overlook. Yet optimism without preparation becomes fantasy. Ancient wisdom consistently insisted that inner transformation must express itself through outward conduct. Discipline gives vision its feet. Patience gives purpose its endurance. Character gives success its stability. History repeatedly confirms this truth. The builders of cathedrals devoted decades to projects they would never personally see completed. Philosophers spent lifetimes refining ideas before they influenced civilizations. Farmers accepted seasons they could not accelerate. None expected immediate results because they understood that natural law unfolds according to rhythms beyond personal impatience. Modern life often encourages the opposite. We expect instant answers, instant recognition, instant wealth, and instant change. When results arrive slowly, many conclude that nothing is happening. The ancients would have reminded us that the deepest transformations usually occur beneath the surface, long before they become visible. A seed appears inactive beneath the soil, yet invisible roots are quietly preparing visible growth. The same principle applies to character. Integrity develops long before anyone notices. Wisdom matures through countless unseen decisions. Trust is earned one honest action at a time. No shortcut replaces this process. Perhaps the greatest manifestation myth is the belief that life changes without the person changing first. Ancient philosophy consistently reversed this assumption. Rather than asking, "How can I attract success?" it asked, "What kind of person must I become to sustain success wisely?" That question changes everything. Instead of chasing outcomes alone, attention shifts toward developing patience, generosity, resilience, gratitude, and disciplined action. Ironically, these qualities often make meaningful achievements far more likely because they improve judgment, relationships, and perseverance. Monestation, then, becomes less about forcing reality and more about aligning one's thoughts, values, and actions with timeless principles. It is cooperation rather than control, participation rather than manipulation, growth rather than illusion. The ancient masters never promised a life free from disappointment. Storms would still come, losses would still occur, uncertainty would remain part of the human journey. Yet they believed that a well-ordered inner life allowed a person to meet every season with greater wisdom and effectiveness. The miracle was never that life always became easier. The miracle was that the individual became stronger, calmer, and more capable of responding creatively to whatever life presented. So before asking what you wish to manifest, perhaps ask a deeper question. What qualities must be cultivated within you so that, when opportunity finally arrives, you are truly prepared to receive it? Chapter 8. Becoming worthy of greater responsibility. Responsibility is not safely given to the unprepared. Whether in Egyptian courts, Roman leadership, Hebrew traditions, or Eastern philosophy, the greatest leaders were expected to develop themselves before they governed others. Wisdom always preceded authority. Modern life often reverses this order. People ask for greater income before mastering current finances. They desire influence before mastering their emotions. They seek leadership before learning humility. They pursue recognition before becoming reliable. Yet nature itself teaches another rhythm. A tree does not produce abundant fruit by stretching its branches higher. It first deepens its roots. Growth above depends upon strength below. This principle applies equally to prosperity. Ancient Hebrew wisdom repeatedly presents wealth as stewardship rather than possession. Resources are entrusted rather than permanently owned. The question is never merely how much one possesses, but how faithfully one manages what has already been received. Imagine two gardeners receiving identical seeds. The first plants them carelessly, neglects the soil, and blames fate when little grows. The second prepares the ground patiently, waters consistently, removes weeds daily, and protects each young shoot from harm. Months later, outsiders notice only the harvest. They rarely notice the stewardship. Life often functions the same way. Visible prosperity usually rests upon invisible habits. This is why the ancient teachers connected wealth with responsibility rather than luck. Money amplifies character. Influence magnifies intention. Power reveals maturity. None of these create wisdom. They expose whatever already exists. Marcus Aurelius governed one of history's greatest empires, while constantly reminding himself that authority belonged to duty rather than ego. His private reflections reveal remarkable humility. Although surrounded by luxury, he repeatedly returned to questions of justice, restraint, and service. He understood something many leaders discover too late. The greater the responsibility, the smaller the ego must become. Otherwise, leadership becomes domination instead of stewardship. The same truth appears throughout everyday life. A parent entrusted with raising children soon realizes that love alone is insufficient without patience. A teacher discovers that knowledge alone cannot replace compassion. A business owner learns that lasting success depends less upon cleverness than upon trust. Every meaningful responsibility enlarges the soul that accepts it faithfully, yet many people unknowingly sabotage their own expansion. They pray for abundance, while remaining careless with today's opportunities. They long for peace, while refusing to organize their daily habits. They seek influence while neglecting their promises. Life gently asks the same question repeatedly. What have you done with what you already possess? The answer quietly determines what comes next. This principle is beautifully illustrated in the ancient parable of entrusted talents. Each servant receives resources according to capacity. Those who cultivate and wisely employ what has been entrusted demonstrate readiness for greater responsibility. The lesson reaches beyond finances. Time, relationships, wisdom, health, creativity, and influence all function similarly. Growth invites greater trust. Neglect diminishes opportunity. Notice how this appears even in nature. A river widens gradually as it proves capable of carrying more water. Muscles strengthen by accepting increasing resistance. The mind expands through disciplined learning. Capacity always develops before greater function. Human character is no different. Humility plays a central role in this expansion. The ancients never viewed humility as weakness. Instead, they considered it accurate vision. A humble person remains teachable because they understand that wisdom has no final destination. The proud close the door to learning. The humble continually enlarge it. There is an old saying among Eastern teachers, "The full cup cannot receive. Only an empty vessel welcomes fresh water." Likewise, only a teachable heart welcomes greater wisdom. Perhaps this explains why life's greatest teachers often arrive disguised as ordinary responsibilities: caring for aging parents, keeping one's promises, managing disappointment with grace, serving faithfully without applause, listening before speaking. These simple disciplines quietly enlarge the soul. One day opportunities arrive that once seemed impossible. Others call it luck. Ancient wisdom calls it preparation. Prosperity is rarely sustained by ambition alone. It rests upon invisible qualities developed long before success becomes visible: integrity, patience, discipline, compassion, reliability, self-control. These become the unseen architecture capable of supporting greater abundance. Without them, external success often collapses under its own weight. With them, even modest blessings multiply naturally. So perhaps the deepest question is not, why has life given others more? Perhaps the wiser question is, how am I preparing myself for whatever life may someday entrust to me? Because the greatest promotion is never merely external. It is the expansion of the person receiving it. Become trustworthy with little. Greater responsibility begins looking for you. Chapter 9. Forgiveness. The hidden key to inner freedom. Forgiveness has often been misunderstood as approving injustice or pretending painful events never happened. The ancient teachers meant something entirely different. Forgiveness is liberation, not for the offender first, for the one still carrying the burden. The Stoics observed that anger usually harms the one holding it longer than the one who caused it. Buddhist traditions similarly describe resentment as grasping burning coals with the hope of injuring another. The fire rarely travels. It simply burns the hand refusing to release it. Imagine an archer attempting to fire an arrow while another arrow remains lodged inside his own shoulder. No matter how carefully he aims, pain continually disturbs his movement. Healing becomes more urgent than retaliation. Likewise, the wounds we refuse to heal quietly influence every new relationship, every important decision, and every hopeful beginning. The past begins speaking through the present, not because the past remains alive, because we continue carrying it. There is an ancient story about two monks walking together after heavy rains. They encountered a frightened woman unable to cross a flooded river. One monk quietly lifted her onto his shoulders, carried her safely across, and continued walking. Hours later, the second monk finally burst into frustration. "You know our vows forbid touching women. How could you do that?" The first monk smiled gently. "I carried her across the river." He paused. "You are still carrying her." This simple story has survived centuries because it describes the invisible habits of the human heart. Many arguments ended years ago. Many disappointments belong to another season. Many failures have already passed. Yet consciousness continues replaying them until they become present once again. Forgiveness interrupts this endless repetition. Psychologically, resentment narrows perception. When hurt becomes identity, the mind begins searching constantly for additional evidence confirming its pain. Every new relationship becomes suspicious. Every disagreement feels familiar. Every opportunity carries hidden fear. The wound begins organizing reality. Forgiveness slowly restores freedom of perception. It does not erase memory. It changes relationship with memory. This distinction matters enormously. Ancient healers understood that emotional release often precedes creative renewal. A field overgrown with thorns cannot receive fresh seed. A vessel filled with stagnant water cannot welcome clean water. Likewise, a heart crowded with bitterness struggles to recognize new possibilities already waiting nearby. What you release creates space. Space welcomes life. Consider Joseph, sold into slavery by his own brothers in the ancient Hebrew narrative. Years later, possessing power over those who betrayed him, he faced an extraordinary choice. Revenge promised temporary satisfaction. Forgiveness promised lasting freedom. His decision altered not only his future, but the future of generations. History remembers his mercy more than his suffering. Forgiveness transformed destiny. On a smaller scale, every family experiences similar moments: a misunderstanding between siblings, a careless sentence spoken in anger, a friendship weakened through pride. Years pass. Sometimes neither person remembers exactly how the separation began. Only the distance remains. One humble act of forgiveness often accomplishes what years of stubbornness never could. This is why ancient wisdom consistently connected forgiveness with courage. It is easier to preserve resentment than to release it, easier to rehearse injury than to heal it, easier to remain imprisoned by yesterday than to walk freely into tomorrow. Forgiveness requires strength, not because it ignores pain, because it refuses to let pain become permanent identity. There is another dimension often overlooked. Many people forgive others more easily than themselves. Old mistakes become lifelong companions. Embarrassments from decades earlier still whisper accusations. Regret quietly shapes self-worth. Yet if transformation is possible for humanity, it must also remain possible for the individual. The alchemists described turning lead into gold as a symbol of inner transformation. Perhaps self-forgiveness is one of its purest expressions, not excusing failure, learning from it, then laying it down. Practically, forgiveness begins with honest acknowledgement. Name the wound, feel its weight, recognize how long it has traveled beside you, then ask one courageous question. Do I wish to continue carrying this into the next chapter of my life? No one else can answer. No one else can release it. That choice belongs entirely to the heart. And when the heart finally opens its hand, something remarkable happens. Energy once consumed by resentment becomes available for creativity. Attention once trapped in yesterday returns to today. Hope quietly replaces exhaustion. The future no longer resembles the past because the past no longer governs the future. The old pilgrim never realized how strong he truly was until he emptied the jar filled with stones. Perhaps you too have been carrying something that no longer belongs on your journey. Set it down. Walk lighter. What you release today can never again decide where you are able to go tomorrow. Chapter 10. Faith without anxiety. Act faithfully without becoming imprisoned by outcomes. There is a quiet difference between faith and anxiety, though many people mistake one for the other. Anxiety constantly asks, "Will this happen?" Faith calmly asks, "Who must I become while I wait?" One is obsessed with controlling tomorrow. The other is devoted to living wisely today. The ancient teachers rarely described faith as certainty about future events. Instead, they spoke of it as a steady confidence that life unfolds according to deeper laws than fear can perceive. It was not passive optimism. It was disciplined trust expressed through meaningful action. An old traveler once crossed a vast desert, carrying only enough water for a few days. At sunset on the third evening, he arrived at an abandoned well. Beside it stood a small clay jug containing a little water and a faded inscription carved into stone. It read, "Pour this water into the dry pump. Only then will the deeper water rise." The traveler hesitated. If he drank the small amount immediately, he would survive another day. If he obeyed the inscription, he risked losing everything. After a long silence, he poured the precious water into the pump. Nothing happened. He pumped again. Still nothing. His breathing became heavier as doubt entered his mind. Then, after several more attempts, cool water surged upward from the hidden spring beneath the earth, overflowing the well and filling every vessel he possessed. Before leaving, he carefully refilled the small clay jug and wrote beneath the original inscription, "It truly works, but only if you trust enough to pour first." Ancient storytellers preserved tales like this because they reveal one of the deepest mysteries of human life. Many of the greatest rewards arrive only after an act of trust. The farmer plants seeds months before seeing harvest. The sculptor spends years shaping marble before anyone admires the statue. Parents invest decades into children without knowing what kind of adults they will become. teachers pour wisdom into students who may not appreciate it until much later. Life repeatedly asks us to act before certainty appears. This is not irrational faith. It is participation in the rhythm of growth. The Corpus Hermeticum often portrays the universe as an intelligent order rather than random chaos. From this perspective, creation unfolds according to principles that reward harmony, patience, and conscious participation. One need not claim certainty about metaphysical realities to appreciate the practical insight. Meaningful outcomes usually require sustained effort before visible results emerge. Modern culture often mistakes urgency for effectiveness. We refresh screens every few minutes. We expect immediate answers. We measure progress by speed. Yet nature remains wonderfully unconcerned with our impatience. The oak refuses to hurry. The mountain ignores deadlines. The stars do not alter their courses because humanity becomes restless. Everything enduring grows according to rhythm rather than haste. Anxiety begins when we attempt to harvest what has only recently been planted. Faith allows roots to grow unseen. The Stoics understood this profoundly. Epictetus reminded his students that peace comes from distinguishing between what belongs within our control and what does not. We govern our choices, our discipline, our integrity, and our responses. Outcomes remain influenced by countless factors beyond individual command. This insight is deeply liberating. Imagine an archer preparing for competition. She carefully chooses the bow. She trains daily. She studies the wind. She steadies her breathing. She releases the arrow with complete attention. After that moment, the arrow belongs partly to forces she cannot control. The wind may shift. Another competitor may perform better. Weather may change unexpectedly. Her peace depends upon remembering where her responsibility ended. Life resembles this ancient image. Prepare fully, acts completely, resh peacefully. Anxiety arises whenever we attempt to control what was never ours to govern. Faith, by contrast, continues working without becoming emotionally imprisoned by results. This does not eliminate disappointment. It transforms our relationship with it. There is another ancient story about a gardener who planted fruit trees knowing he would never taste their harvest. Neighbors questioned his wisdom. "Why labor for fruit you will never eat?" The old man smiled. "I eat today because someone else planted before me." His labor was not diminished because its reward belonged partly to another generation. Purpose replaced immediate gratification. Faith always stretches beyond the present moment. Psychologically, anxious minds remain trapped in imagined futures. Every possibility becomes catastrophe. Every delay becomes failure. Every uncertainty becomes evidence that something is wrong. The nervous system begins living inside predictions instead of reality. Faith gently returns awareness to the present task. One conversation, one act of kindness, one wise decision, one faithful step. The future is quietly shaped by today's quality of attention. Many manifestations fail not because opportunity never existed, but because anxiety scattered the energy needed to recognize it. Fear narrows perception, trust widens it. A person obsessed with avoiding failure often overlooks unexpected possibilities appearing beside the original plan. A calm mind notices openings invisible to panic. This is why stillness becomes practical wisdom rather than luxury. Silence clarifies intention. Patience sharpens discernment. Peace protects perspective. Ancient monasteries, temples, and hermitages all understood that inner quiet allows wiser action. They did not retreat from life. They returned to it with greater clarity. Faith without anxiety also requires non-attachment. This principle appears throughout many wisdom traditions. Non-attachment does not mean indifference. It means loving deeply without becoming possessed by outcomes, working diligently without worshiping success, serving generously without demanding recognition, planning carefully without fearing uncertainty. Such freedom transforms ordinary work into sacred participation. There is profound dignity in offering one's best while remaining inwardly free. Perhaps this explains why some of history's wisest individuals radiated unusual calm during difficult circumstances. Their peace did not depend upon perfect conditions. It rested upon faithful participation. They trusted that character mattered more than immediate appearances, that no sincere effort rooted in truth was ever truly wasted, that hidden growth often preceded visible change. Every sunrise quietly confirms this principle. The earth spends hours turning through darkness before light becomes visible. Growth begins long before it can be measured. So does healing, so does wisdom, so does transformation. Therefore, ask yourself a gentler question. Instead of asking, "When will everything finally change?" ask, "How can I remain faithful while change is quietly unfolding?" The answer may become the beginning of lasting peace. Acts with your whole heart, release with open hands. Faith walks forward, anxiety keeps looking back. Choose the path that leaves your spirit free. Chapter 11, The Law of Sacred Exchange. Prosperity grows through generous contribution, rather than fearful accumulation. Whether expressed through the Hebrew idea of generous stewardship, the Stoic emphasis on service to the common good, or the reciprocal ethics found across many civilizations, one principle continually appears. Life tends to circulate toward those who circulate value. This is not a guarantee of material riches, nor should it be understood as a mechanical formula. Rather, it reflects a recognizable pattern in human communities. People naturally trust those who consistently serve. Opportunities often emerge through relationships built upon generosity, integrity, and goodwill. Contribution creates connections that accumulation alone cannot purchase. Imagine a flowing river. Its water remains fresh because it continually moves. Now imagine a stagnant pond sealed from every stream. What once gave life gradually becomes lifeless. The ancients frequently used flowing water as a symbol because they recognized that generosity resembles circulation. What remains in healthy motion nourishes many. What exists only for itself eventually diminishes. This law extends beyond money. Kindness multiplies when shared, wisdom deepens when taught. Encouragement strengthens both speaker and listener. Knowledge grows clearer through generous explanation. Even forgiveness becomes richer by being given. The paradox is beautiful. Many of life's greatest treasures increase precisely because they are shared. Modern psychology quietly confirms part of this ancient insight. Acts of generosity often strengthen social bonds, increase meaning, and contribute to emotional well-being. While generosity does not guarantee financial success, it frequently enriches relationships and communities in ways that create lasting value. The ancient teachers would not have found this surprising. They understood that giving transforms the giver. There is another lesson hidden within sacred exchange. True generosity must remain free from attachment. Otherwise, it becomes disguised bargaining. A gift offered only to manipulate another is no longer truly a gift. Dorfis performed only for applause quietly loses its purity. Ancient sages repeatedly warned against generosity motivated entirely by reward. The healthiest exchange flows from abundance rather than desperation. Consider the sun. It shines without selecting only the deserving. The tree offers shade even to strangers. The spring provides water without demanding admiration. Nature teaches generosity without self-advertisement. Human beings flourish when they participate in this same spirit. One elderly craftsman spent 60 years carving wooden furniture in a small village. Every chair bore his signature beneath the seat, where almost no one would ever notice it. When asked why he devoted such care to hidden details, he answered simply, "I know they are there." Integrity remained present even where applause was absent. Customers traveled from distant towns because they sensed something unusual in his work. They purchased more than furniture. They purchased trust. His prosperity grew from invisible excellence long before it became visible success. Sacred exchange also reminds us that receiving gracefully is itself a form of wisdom. Many people gladly give but struggle to receive help. Pride quietly resists dependence, yet every civilization survived through mutual support. Children receive before they contribute. The elderly often receive after decades of serving. Neighbors assist one another during harvest, illness, or disaster. Giving and receiving complete the same circle. Neither exists fully without the other. Perhaps this is why gratitude occupies such an important place within every wisdom tradition. Gratitude recognizes that no life is entirely self-made. Someone taught us, someone encouraged us, someone forgave us, someone sacrificed so we could continue. Every meaningful life rests upon countless unseen gifts. Recognizing this naturally awakens generosity toward others. The chain continues. Prosperity then becomes more than possession. It becomes participation. Participation in building stronger families, healthier communities, more trustworthy workplaces, kinder friendships, more compassionate societies. The greatest wealth is not measured only by what passes through our hands. It is measured by what passes through our lives into the lives of others. The merchant who enriched every traveler left behind more than successful trade. He left a reputation that outlived his marketplace. His generosity continued traveling long after his caravan disappeared beyond the horizon. Perhaps this remains the deepest law of sacred exchange. Everything truly valuable longs to circulate. Wisdom, love, dor vivus, hope, compassion. And when these circulate freely, prosperity becomes something far greater than accumulation. It becomes the quiet art of enriching the world, while discovering that, in giving our best, our own lives become richer as well. Chapter 12. Building a legacy beyond possessions. Your greatest creation may be the lives you elevate. There is an ancient question that every civilization eventually asked its wisest people. What remains after a human being is gone? The question has never truly been about death. It has always been about significance. Empires have risen with astonishing power, only to become ruins beneath drifting sand. Fortunes once capable of buying kingdoms eventually passed into unfamiliar hands. Palaces became museums. Coins became artifacts. Names carved proudly into marble, faded beneath centuries of wind and rain. Yet some lives continue speaking long after their voices have disappeared, not because they possessed more, because they became more. The ancients understood something modern society often forgets. Possessions belong to time. Character belongs to eternity. This is why the greatest teachers rarely measured wealth by what a person accumulated. They measured wealth by what remained alive after that person had departed. An old tradition tells of a respected village elder whose home contained almost nothing of material value. His furniture was simple, his clothing was plain. He owned no fields larger than anyone else's. When he died, travelers came from distant lands to attend his burial. His children asked one another in surprise, "Why have so many strangers come?" One old merchant stepped forward and answered, "When I was young, your father taught me honesty after I had cheated a customer." A widow spoke next. "He secretly left food at my door every winter." A former soldier wiped away tears. "He convinced me that forgiveness required greater courage than revenge." One by one they came forward, not carrying gifts, carrying stories. Only then did the children understand their father's true inheritance. He had been quietly planting himself inside other human beings. That is the oldest form of legacy. His story quietly confirms this pattern. When we remember Socrates, we rarely think about what he owned. We remember the questions he asked. When Marcus Aurelius comes to mind, few remember the luxury available to a Roman emperor. Instead, we remember the remarkable discipline with which he governed himself while governing an empire. Confucius left no towering monuments of stone. He left principles that continued shaping families and civilizations for centuries. Their greatest creation was not material, it was human. Every meaningful legacy begins in ordinary conversations. Parents teaching children patience, grandparents sharing wisdom earned through decades of mistakes, friends encouraging one another toward integrity, mentors believing in someone before they believe in themselves. The future is quietly built inside these unnoticed moments. Modern culture often encourages us to think of legacy as something reserved for famous individuals. The ancients disagreed. Every household influences future generations. Every teacher leaves invisible fingerprints upon students. Every act of kindness changes someone who may later change countless others. Influence travels farther than intention. Imagine throwing a small stone into a still lake. The stone disappears almost immediately. The ripples continue traveling long after the stone is gone. Human character works the same way. A single encouraging conversation may alter an entire life. A parent's integrity may shape grandchildren never yet born. A mentor's wisdom may echo through generations they will never meet. We seldom witness the full distance traveled by our actions. This realization transforms ordinary responsibility into something sacred. Ancient Hebrew wisdom repeatedly emphasizes that the righteous leave an inheritance extending beyond money. While material provision has value, wisdom, justice, compassion, and integrity are portrayed as gifts capable of blessing future generations far more deeply than possessions alone. Psychologically, people often search for permanence through accumulation because they fear being forgotten. Yet, accumulation rarely satisfies this longing. Meaning grows through contribution. People rarely remember how much another person possessed. They remember how they were treated, how they were encouraged, how they were forgiven, how they were loved. There is another ancient story about a stonemason constructing a temple. A traveler asked 3 workers what they were doing. The first answered, "I am cutting stone." The second replied, "I am earning today's wages." The third smiled quietly, "I am building a place where generations yet unborn will remember what is sacred." Each performed identical labor. Each inhabited a completely different world. Purpose transformed ordinary work into lasting legacy. The same remains true today. A physician heals more than illness. A teacher shapes more than knowledge. A craftsman builds more than furniture. Botkrents raise more than children. Each participates in forming future humanity. This understanding also changes our relationship with success. Instead of asking, "How much have I gained?" the wiser question becomes, "Who has become stronger because I lived?" That question reaches beyond careers, beyond retirement, beyond recognition, beyond financial achievement. Legacy is measured by lives elevated. It is possible to possess enormous wealth while leaving behind very little wisdom. It is equally possible to own very little while enriching countless lives. One elderly woman spent decades writing handwritten letters to discouraged friends, former students, grieving families, and lonely neighbors. No publisher printed them. No audience applauded them. After her passing, boxes filled with those letters were discovered in homes across the country. Many recipients later confessed they had nearly surrendered hope before opening one of her envelopes. Her handwriting became part of their survival. She never imagined the size of her influence. Few truly influential people ever do, because authentic service rarely advertises itself. It quietly continues. The conscious creator therefore understands that every day offers opportunities to shape invisible inheritance. Patience becomes inheritance. Integrity becomes inheritance. Compassion becomes inheritance. Wisdom becomes inheritance. Children observe them. Friends absorb them. Communities remember them. Long after words fade, character continues teaching. One day every possession will belong to someone else. Every title will eventually be forgotten. Every achievement will become history. But the courage you awakened in another person, the hope you restored, the wisdom you faithfully shared, the love you consistently practiced, these continue traveling through lives you may never meet. Perhaps this explains why the greatest creators throughout history were never merely building monuments. They were building people, and people, in turn, continued building the future. Leave behind more than memories. Leave behind better human beings. That is the highest architecture of legacy. Chapter 13. Daily Practices of the Conscious Creator. Ancient wisdom was never intended to remain imprisoned inside scrolls, temples, or philosophical conversations. It was meant to become habit. The greatest teachers rarely measured spiritual maturity by extraordinary experiences. They observed ordinary routines. How did someone begin the morning? How did they speak to strangers? How did they respond to disappointment? How did they end the day? Destiny, they believed, was quietly woven from repeated moments that appeared too small to matter. A young disciple once traveled many weeks, hoping to learn hidden mysteries from an elderly, hermetic teacher living beside the desert. After arriving, he expected secret symbols, sacred ceremonies, or mysterious revelations. Instead, he watched the old man wake before sunrise every morning. He sat silently while the first light spread across the horizon. He breathed slowly. He expressed gratitude. He swept the floor with complete attention. He tended a small garden. He welcomed every visitor kindly. Each evening he reflected upon his actions before sleeping peacefully. After several months, the impatient student finally protested. "Master, when will you reveal the secret teachings?" The old teacher smiled gently. "I have." The disciple looked confused. "I have seen only ordinary habits." "Exactly," replied the master. "The extraordinary hides inside the ordinary, repeated faithfully." This insight appears again and again across ancient traditions. Transformation rarely arrives through dramatic moments alone. It accumulates through consistent practice. The conscious creator understands that mornings shape perception long before circumstances appear. This is why many ancient communities greeted dawn with silence instead of distraction. Before the world's demands entered the mind, they allowed awareness to awaken gently. Morning silence is not empty, it is preparation. Imagine beginning each day without immediately reaching for noise, without surrendering attention to endless headlines, messages, or worries. Instead, sit quietly, notice your breathing. Observe your thoughts without chasing them. Lime the mind to become clear before asking it to solve problems. Such silence gradually reveals something surprising. Many thoughts demanding immediate attention lose their power when simply observed. Others reveal genuine priorities previously hidden beneath mental clutter. From silence naturally emerges meditation. Across civilizations, meditation assumed different forms, yet its purpose remained remarkably similar: to remember rather than merely react, to witness rather than automatically identify, to cultivate awareness deeper than passing emotions. One need not seek mystical visions. Simply returning attention to the present moment again and again begins reshaping consciousness. Like water smoothing rough stone, quiet consistency transforms the inner landscape. Visualization follows naturally. Plato suggested that visible forms participate in deeper realities, while many later traditions explored the power of mentally rehearsing noble actions before living them. Here visualization becomes practical rather than magical. Imagine yourself responding patiently during a difficult conversation. Imagine acting generously when selfishness appears easier. Imagine completing meaningful work with integrity. The mind rehearses possibility. Character later follows familiar pathways. Athletes understand this principle. Musicians understand it. Ancient initiates understood it long before neuroscience described mental rehearsal. The future often begins as disciplined imagination. Another practice honored throughout history is journaling. Roman emperors practiced written reflection. Monastic communities preserved daily examinations of conscience. Philosophers questioned themselves through careful writing. Writing slows thought. Ideas hidden beneath emotional reactions suddenly become visible. Questions deepen, ports emerge. Wisdom grows clearer. The page becomes a quiet mirror. Ask yourself each morning, what kind of person deserves today's opportunities? Ask again each evening, did I become that person? Few questions possess greater power. Speech also deserves daily attention. Ancient traditions consistently viewed words as creative forces shaping relationships, communities, and personal identity. Speech can heal. Speech can divide. Speech can encourage forgotten courage. Speech can imprison another person's hope. Before speaking, many teachers encouraged 3 silent questions. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Not every truthful sentence requires immediate expression. Not every opinion deserves a voice. The conscious creator speaks intentionally because words continue living inside listeners long after conversations end. One sentence may become someone's lifelong encouragement or lifelong wound. Choose carefully. Gratitude completes the rhythm of conscious living. It does not deny hardship, it enlarges perception. An elderly farmer once walked his fields every evening regardless of harvest conditions. Neighbors asked why he continued giving thanks during difficult years. He answered, "If I only thank life after abundance arrives, my heart becomes a servant of circumstances. If I learn gratitude before abundance, my heart remains free." Gratitude changes the observer before it changes the observed. It trains the mind to recognize unnoticed blessings while remaining honest about genuine difficulties. Such balance nourishes resilience rather than denial. As daylight fades, ancient wisdom recommends one final discipline: evening reflection, not harsh self-condemnation, not endless regret, honest observation. Marcus Aurelius often examined his own thoughts, actions, and motives with remarkable humility. His purpose was never perfection, but continual refinement. Ask gently, where did fear guide me today? Where did wisdom appear? Whom did I help? Where must I apologize? What deserves gratitude? What deserves release? These questions quietly prepare tomorrow before sleep even begins. Psychologically, daily rituals strengthen identity. Each repeated action whispers, "This is who I am becoming." Identity grows from repetition. Habits eventually become character. Character gradually shapes destiny. No single morning creates transformation. No single journal entry changes a life. No single act of gratitude rewrites consciousness. Yet years quietly reveal what daily practice has been constructing all along. The sculptor never creates beauty through one strike of the chisel. Thousands of careful movements reveal what already waits within the stone. So it is with human beings. The conscious creator is not waiting for life to become meaningful. The conscious creator practices meaning every day: morning silence, meditation, purposeful imagination, written reflection, intentional speech, evening examination, civil disciplines, profound consequences. The ancients understood what modern life often forgets. Great destinies are rarely born from occasional inspiration. They emerge from faithful daily practices performed with extraordinary awareness. The future is not created all at once. It is quietly written every ordinary day. One intentional thought, one truthful word, one compassionate act, one disciplined habit at a time. Chapter 1:4. Living in harmony with universal law. Life becomes more coherent when actions align with timeless principles. Life possesses an order that human beings do not invent. We discover it. The Egyptians spoke of ma'at, the principle of balance and right order. The Stoics described living according to nature, aligning oneself with reason rather than impulse. Hermetic teachers spoke of harmony with universal principles. Greek philosophers searched for the logos, the intelligent order beneath the changing world. Different names. One invitation: live in harmony with reality instead of struggling against it. The greatest suffering often begins not because life has abandoned us, but because we have drifted away from the principles that quietly sustain life itself. Imagine a sailor crossing a vast sea. He cannot command the wind. He cannot negotiate with the tides. He cannot demand that the stars change their position. Yet by understanding them, respecting them, and adjusting his sails accordingly, he reaches his destination. Wisdom is not forcing reality to obey. Wisdom is learning how reality already moves. The ancient masters understood this deeply. They observed rivers, seasons, forests, mountains, and stars long before they attempted to understand themselves. Nature became their first teacher. No tree grows by competing with another tree. No sunrise rushes ahead of time. No season apologizes for arriving when it must. Everything participates in a larger rhythm. Only human beings often imagine they can find peace while resisting the very order that sustains existence. This resistance appears in ordinary ways. We desire results without patience, recognition without contribution, successes without discipline, peace without forgiveness, wisdom without humility. The conflict is rarely with life itself. It is with our refusal to cooperate with reality. The Stoics frequently reminded themselves that suffering increases whenever expectation refuses to meet what is actually present. Hermetic philosophy adds another layer by suggesting that our inner condition profoundly shapes how we participate in the world. While this is a philosophical perspective rather than a scientific claim, it encourages careful attention to thought, intention, and character before attempting to change circumstances. The world often reflects the quality of our participation. An ancient story tells of a gardener employed by a king. Visitors admired the remarkable beauty of the royal gardens and praised the gardener's extraordinary skill. One young apprentice asked his secret. The old gardener smiled. "I do not force flowers to bloom." "Then what do you do?" "I remove what prevents them." He watered consistently. He removed weeds. He enriched the soil. He respected each season. He accepted that winter belonged as much as spring. The flowers performed the miracle. His responsibility was faithful cooperation. So it is with human life. Many people spend years trying to manufacture fulfillment while neglecting the conditions that allow it to grow naturally. Presence becomes one of those conditions. Most of humanity lives divided between yesterday's regrets and tomorrow's anxieties, yet life unfolds only here, only now. Presence is not merely paying attention. It is fully participating in the moment that has actually been given. An elderly craftsman once spent months carving a single wooden bowl. A wealthy traveler laughed. "You work far too slowly." The craftsman replied, "I am not carving a bowl. I am carving my attention." Years later, countless bowls had broken. The craftsman's attentive spirit remained. Every repeated act had quietly shaped him. Presence always transforms the practitioner before it transforms the practice. Awareness naturally follows. Ancient wisdom never encouraged blind optimism. It encouraged clear seeing. Notice your thoughts. Observe recurring emotions. Recognize patterns before they become habits. Awareness interrupts automatic living. Without awareness, people repeat the same mistakes while expecting different outcomes. With awareness, even suffering becomes instruction. This leads naturally to responsibility. Modern culture often equates responsibility with burden. Ancient philosophy viewed responsibility as freedom. The moment we accept responsibility for our responses, our words, our habits, and our character, we reclaim authorship over our lives. Epictetus reminded his students that while circumstances cannot always be chosen, responses remain within our influence. That insight still carries remarkable psychological power. Victims wait. Creators participate. Responsibility marks the difference. Allengen then becomes the bridge connecting inner conviction with outward action. Many people sincerely believe noble principles. Far fewer consistently live them. Allengen means allowing beliefs, speech, decisions, relationships, finances, and habits to point in the same direction. A divided life consumes enormous energy. A coherent life generates quiet strength. Consider an ancient temple supported by perfectly balanced columns. Remove only one supporting pillar, and eventually the entire structure weakens. Human character functions similarly. Integrity is internal architecture. Each consistent action reinforces the whole. Consistency itself deserves careful attention. Modern society often celebrates dramatic breakthroughs. Ancient teachers celebrated faithful repetition. A single generous act inspires. Years of generosity transform identity. One day of discipline encourages. Thousands of disciplined days reshape destiny. Small actions rarely remain small. They accumulate. The river carves stone not through violence but through persistence. Daily choices carve character the same way. Humility completes the pattern. The more genuinely wise someone becomes, the less interested they are in appearing wise. Ancient sages repeatedly warned that pride blinds perception. Humility keeps learning alive. It allows correction without humiliation, growth without defensiveness, strength without arrogance. One respected philosopher was once asked how he continued learning despite old age. He answered, "Every sunrise reminds me how much existed before I arrived. Humility expands vision. Ego narrows it. The paradox is beautiful. Those who surrender the need to appear superior become capable of genuine greatness. Psychologically, harmony produces remarkable clarity. Inner conflict decreases. Decision-making becomes simpler. Relationships grow healthier because words increasingly match intentions. Even setbacks become easier to navigate because identity rests upon principles rather than outcomes. The conscious creator, therefore, measures progress differently, not merely by income, not merely by recognition, but by increasing coherence between inner life and outer behavior. Can my family trust my words? Can strangers experience kindness through my presence? Can adversity reveal integrity instead of panic? Am I becoming more truthful, more patient, more compassionate than I was yesterday? These questions matter because universal law is never merely theoretical. It becomes visible through ordinary living. The ancients never asked us to escape the world. They invited us to participate within it more wisely. Harmony is not passive acceptance. It is active cooperation, like the sailor trusting the stars, like the gardener respecting the seasons, like the river flowing faithfully toward the sea. Life grows surprisingly coherent when we stop demanding that reality revolve around us and begin aligning ourselves with the timeless principles that quietly sustain all life. That harmony is not weakness, it is strength without struggle. Chapter 15. You become what you practice. The oldest schools of wisdom did not ask one question more than any other. They asked one repeatedly. What are you becoming? Not what are you achieving? Not what are you accumulating? Not what are others saying about you? But what kind of human being is slowly emerging through the life you live each day? This question stands at the heart of nearly every ancient tradition. The Corpus Hermeticum teaches that humanity participates in a greater order through consciousness and self-knowledge. Plato suggested that visible reality reflects deeper, unseen realities that shape it. Stoic philosophers insisted that repeated choices gradually form character. Though expressed differently, each tradition points toward the same practical insight. You become what you repeatedly practice. Every thought rehearsed strengthens a pathway. Every emotion continually indulged becomes easier to revisit. Every action repeated quietly shapes identity. Character is not built in extraordinary moments. It is accumulated through ordinary ones. Imagine an apprentice sculptor entering the workshop of an aging master. The apprentice expects to learn one magnificent technique capable of producing masterpieces overnight. Instead, the master spends weeks teaching him how to hold the chisel correctly, how to observe the stone, how to remain patient, how to strike gently rather than forcefully. The student grows frustrated. Why do we practice such simple things? The old sculptor answers, because one day they will become your hands. This is the forgotten mystery of practice. What begins as effort eventually becomes nature. The same is true of consciousness. If worry becomes daily practice, anxiety slowly feels normal. If gratitude becomes daily practice, appreciation begins appearing naturally. If bitterness is rehearsed every evening, resentment becomes identity. If forgiveness is practiced repeatedly, freedom gradually replaces heaviness. Life is constantly teaching us. The only question is which lessons we repeat. Hermetic philosophy speaks of the divine mind, not as an invitation to escape life, but as a reminder that conscious participation begins inwardly. From this perspective, thought, intention, and awareness influence the way we meet the world, even though they do not exempt us from effort, uncertainty, or natural consequences. This understanding transforms ordinary habits into sacred exercises. Every morning becomes creation. Every conversation becomes creation. Every decision becomes creation. Every response to difficulty becomes creation. We are always building something, either consciously or unconsciously. Plato's vision of invisible realities offers another profound insight. Before a builder raises a house, the design already exists within imagination. Before a composer writes music, harmony exists silently within thought. Before courage appears outwardly, it has been quietly practiced inwardly. Invisible preparation precedes visible expression. This is true of every meaningful life. An elder monk once told a young traveler, "People think I became peaceful because I lived in a monastery." The traveler nodded. The old man smiled gently. "Number, I became peaceful because every day I practiced peace before I expected to feel it." That simple sentence contains remarkable wisdom. Many people wait for feelings before choosing actions. The ancients often reversed the order. Practice first, transformation follows. Discipline therefore becomes an expression of freedom rather than restriction. The musician practices scales. The archer practices accuracy. The philosopher practices reflection. The compassionate person practices kindness. The wise person practices truth. Practice creates possibility. Psychologically, identity grows through evidence. Each repeated action silently tells the mind, "This is who I am." One courageous decision rarely removes fear forever. Repeated courageous decisions slowly create someone who naturally acts with courage. One grateful journal entry does not transform perspective. Years of gratitude gradually create a grateful human being. Identity follows repetition. Faith also deserves deeper understanding. Ancient wisdom rarely described faith as emotional certainty. More often it resembled faithful participation, planting seeds before harvest appears, continuing honest work before recognition arrives, remaining generous before abundance becomes visible. Faith acts without demanding immediate proof. It trusts process more than appearance. Gratitude protects this process. Without gratitude, achievement becomes endless hunger. Every success immediately demands another. Every victory feels temporary. Nothing satisfies. Gratitude interrupts this cycle. It reminds us that life is already rich in ways accumulation alone cannot provide. Relationships, health, learning, Dordvefis beauty, hope. These quietly nourish the soul while possessions merely occupy space. Eventually, the conscious creator realizes something extraordinary. The greatest manifestation was never merely attracting different circumstances. It was becoming a different person, someone capable of carrying greater wisdom, greater responsibility, greater compassion, greater peace. External change without internal maturity rarely lasts. Internal transformation naturally influences everything it touches. There is one final ancient story. A young prince searched across kingdoms for a legendary crown said to grant perfect power. After decades of searching, he found an old sage living alone in the mountains. "I have come for the crown." The sage laughed softly. "There is no crown. The stories were false. They misunderstood. The crown was never placed upon the head. It was placed upon character." The prince remained silent. The old man continued. "When wisdom governs thought, when compassion governs strength, when discipline governs desire, when gratitude governs abundance, you already wear it." The prince descended the mountain empty-handed, yet for the first time in his life, he possessed something no thief could ever steal. Perhaps that has always been the real purpose of every ancient teaching, not to make life mysterious, but to make human beings conscious, not to give us secret powers, but to awaken the forgotten powers already waiting within disciplined hearts. Every sunrise offers another opportunity. Every conversation becomes another practice. Every challenge becomes another lesson. Every ordinary day becomes another act of creation. Because in the end, life quietly shapes us according to what we repeatedly honor. You do not become what you occasionally admire. You become what you faithfully practice. And that is the oldest secret the wise have always known. Conclusion. The book ends. The journey begins. When this journey began, it opened with an ancient mystery. What if reality is not as solid as it appears? What if the greatest forces shaping a human life cannot be held in the hand or measured by the eye? What if every civilization preserved fragments of a forgotten science, not a science of controlling the universe, but a discipline of mastering the self? Now, having walked through the wisdom of Hermetic teachers, Greek philosophers, Stoic sages, and generations of seekers who devoted their lives to understanding the invisible foundations beneath visible experience, we arrive at an unexpected conclusion. The mystery was never outside you. It was always asking you to look within. The greatest discovery hidden inside every authentic wisdom tradition is not that human beings possess unlimited power over reality. It is something both more demanding and more liberating. You possess the power to shape the quality of the consciousness through which you meet reality. And over years, that consciousness quietly shapes the life you build. This is why the ancients spent remarkably little time chasing miracles and enormous amounts of time cultivating character. They understood a truth that modern culture often forgets. Circumstances may arrive unexpectedly. Character determines what you do with them. Opportunity appears. Character recognizes it. Wealth arrives. Character preserves it. Difficulty appears. Character transforms it into wisdom. Recognition comes. Character keeps humility alive. Everything eventually returns to the person you have become. That is why this book was never truly about manifestation. It was always about transformation. The world often teaches us to ask, "How can I get more?" Ancient wisdom asks a very different question. Who must I become? The difference changes everything. One question keeps us chasing, the other keeps us growing. There is a beautiful image preserved in old manuscript traditions. A scroll begins as a blank page. Each word carefully written becomes permanent. No sentence can be erased without leaving some trace behind. Human life unfolds in much the same way. Every decision writes another sentence. Every habit writes another paragraph. Every year becomes another chapter. Eventually, an entire life becomes a manuscript authored by thousands of ordinary choices. Most people imagine destiny as something waiting somewhere in the future. The ancients imagined destiny being written quietly every morning. One disciplined conversation, one honest decision, one generous act, one courageous response, one forgiving heart, one grateful thought, small pages, a magnificent book. Perhaps that is why wisdom traditions consistently emphasize daily practice over dramatic breakthroughs. Transformation rarely announces itself. The oak tree does not become enormous in one afternoon. The canyon is not carved in one rainfall. The sculptor completes no masterpiece with a single strike. Greatness accumulates quietly, so does decline. Every repeated action moves us toward one or the other. You become what you repeatedly practice. If resentment becomes daily practice, bitterness grows naturally. If gratitude becomes daily practice, abundance begins appearing in places previously overlooked. If distraction becomes habitual, attention weakens. If stillness becomes familiar, perception deepens. Nothing remains unchanged. Even when we believe we are standing still, we are becoming someone. The question is never whether you are changing, only in which direction. Throughout this journey, we explored the divine mind, the invisible foundations described by Hermetic philosophy, the ideal realities suggested by Plato, the disciplined character of the Stoics, and the timeless rhythm of universal principles. Yet these teachings were never intended merely to inspire admiration. They demanded participation. Knowledge that remains unused slowly becomes decoration. Wisdom that becomes practice transforms an entire life. This is why reading alone has never awakened anyone. Living does. There is another misunderstanding worth leaving behind before closing this book. Many people approach manifestation hoping reality will eventually obey every desire. The ancient teachers offered no such promise. They never claimed that reality obeyed every wish. They taught something far more demanding and far more empowering. Your inner life gradually shapes your outer life through the choices, habits, perceptions, and actions you cultivate every day. This is not magic. It is formation. A fearful mind notices threats others overlook. A grateful mind recognizes opportunities others dismiss. A disciplined mind creates possibilities that impulsive living destroys. A peaceful heart enters situations differently than an anxious one. Slowly, patiently, almost invisibly, inner order begins influencing outward experience, not because the universe abandons its laws, but because human beings participate differently within them. This understanding changes the meaning of prosperity. Prosperity is no longer merely accumulation. It becomes stewardship. Success becomes responsibility. Influence becomes service. Knowledge becomes compassion. Power becomes restraint.